I recently finished reading the first 102 issues of Fantastic Four, a run by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. So what are my thoughts? Stay tuned. Okay, so one of my reading goals this year was to finally get around to reading the first 102 issues in continuity of Fantastic Four. It's very rare in the comic book industry that an artist and a writer will stay together for 102 issues for this long. And for the longest time, for decades, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did this with Fantastic Four, the first big Marvel Silver Age title to come out. They managed to do this for 102 issues, and it's only been more recent that this number has been eclipsed by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley in their run of Ultimate Spider-Man. Now, I've read several issues of Fantastic Four here and there, some of the Silver Age, but more so the issues from the 1980s that were written and drawn by John Byrne. So, I'm pretty familiar with the characters. But let's give you a quick recap. Who are the Fantastic Four? There are, well, four of them. Reed Richards, a brilliant scientist, his girlfriend, Sue Storm, her younger brother, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm, who was a college roommate of Reed Richards. Now, Reed Richards brought this group together to test fly a special rocket ship that he designed. This is to beat the evil communists in the space race. So they fly up, they get bombarded by these cosmic rays, they crash back to Earth, and the cosmic rays gave them these supernatural powers. They decide then, as a group, to use these powers for the greater good, and hence the birth of the Fantastic Four. Now, I'm not going to give you a comprehensive overview of what happened in all these issues or a summary. This is going to be more of like a reflection piece. I'm going to give you 10 fun factoids of what I found to be interesting through the 102 issues that I read. So just a warning, there's going to be a few minor spoilers in this video, but nothing I think to be too considerable. But, these issues have been around for 50 years, but you've been warned. Okay, let's begin. Number 1. Dr. Doom has more lives than a cat. He first appeared in issue number 5 and quickly became the arch enemy of the Fantastic Four. But in every story arc, at the end of the story, he invariably meets his own doom. He buys the farm. And some of his endings are pretty spectacular. But he always managed to come back. Here we have him trapped in space. Here's another instance where he gets shrunk down to nothing. Here's another instance where he got Silver Surfer's powers, but then basically destroyed himself. All the ways that Dr. Doom manages to kind of beat himself are pretty spectacular. Now it even goes to another level in future issues with the introduction of Doombots, and you don't even really know if it's Dr. Doom who buys the farm or not. And this would actually be common with a lot of other FF villains in the early issues. You would think that, they're done, not going to appear again, but they invariably do. Another memorable character that appears often in Fantastic Four is the Watcher. But I think they should have renamed him as the Meddler. He first appears in issue number 13, and he starts to meddle right away. What the Watcher is he's part of a cosmic group of beings that's supposed to document what goes on in the universe. But I guess because of his attachment to the human race, he often sticks his big bulbous head into the affairs, especially with the Fantastic Four, and especially when a big purple cosmic being is part of the picture. I would recommend reading What If, a series where he's basically a prominent character kind of giving alternate stories in an alternate universe of well-known Marvel stories. I also found actually the Disney Plus series to be very good. But yeah, the Watcher, no, he doesn't watch, he meddles. Number 3, the Marvel Age of comic books really begins with Fantastic Four issue number 25. Now sure, the Hulk appeared in a couple issues earlier and Ant-Man appears in number 16, but it really feels like they take the next step in terms of bringing the Marvel Universe together in kind of this continuous form. Because here you have this 2-issue mega battle between the Fantastic Four and the Hulk, which also involved the Avengers coming in. And subsequently after that, you have the X-Men appear in an issue, you have Doctor Strange, you have Daredevil, and at this time, Fantastic Four has well established itself as the flagship title of Marvel. And, they had even put this outrageous title at the top of their comic book, the world's greatest comic magazine. And it really started to feel like it was with these kind of issues that the Fantastic Four was, the first family of Marvel, and the effort to make the Marvel Universe come together was really driven by the Fantastic Four. Like, these 2 issues, I think, are also great because they just have a big battle, and who else is, better than have a big slugfest than the Thing and the Hulk? Number 4. Considering how important Namor the Submariner is in the Fantastic Four history and in Marvel, I was expecting to see Subby appear in a lot more issues, but he just kind of drops off the FF pages with issue number 33. Now, this is kind of understandable because shortly after number 33, or like a year after, he would get his own title in Tales to Astonish. But that being said, there was a long drought between his appearances in Fantastic Four from number 33, and he doesn't appear until Kirby's last issue in number 102. I've always, for some reason, thought that he was much more integral in a lot of those earlier issues of Fantastic Four, but he just wasn't there. I was just expecting to see more of the famous Fishman in Fantastic Four. Number 5. If Doctor Doom was the main arch enemy of the Fantastic Four, then the arch enemy team was the Frightful Four. And they were the Wizard, Sandman, the Trapster, who was before known as Pastepot Pete, and Medusa. Now, to be fair, I didn't think there was anything really frightful about the Frightful Four. And I think part of it had to do with the Trapster. And here you have a guy whose main ability is this big glue gun. And I just thought that was kind of lame. And it's kind of funny because reading through this kind of triggered, when I saw him, it triggered another memory of another character created by Kurt Busiek in his fantastic series called Astro City. And in this one issue, there's this appearance of a bad guy, and his name is the Glue Gun. And, oh man, I thought that was just hilarious. Thank you, Kurt. And thank you, Jack and Stan, for creating this kind of funny character. But yeah, the Frightful Four, they appeared in quite a few issues from the first 102 issues. And they certainly caused a lot of trouble for the Fantastic Four. But despite giving the Fantastic Four a lot of trouble, I just didn't feel the Frightful Four were that big of a deal. Number 6, with issue number 48, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee really take this title to the next level. And this is probably the most famous story arc in the run, and that is the Silver Surfer and Galactus 3-issue storyline. Here you have the Meddler, the Watcher, whoever he is, appear to warn the Fantastic Four of the Herald of Galactus, the Silver Surfer. And the Silver Surfer basically is kind of an omen of Galactus, a cosmic being that literally just eats worlds. I had read these issues before, but never in the context or the continuity of all the issues around it. So this is where it really felt the Fantastic Four were a really powerful, strong team. Because here you have, the biggest of baddies in Galactus and the Silver Surfer come to Earth, and they figure out a way, and, minor spoiler alert, to defeat him. I kind of felt that before this 3-issue story arc, the Fantastic Four weren't really that powerful. But power creep for the Fantastic Four definitely was there. Before, if you read the first few issues, the Invisible Girl, her only power is to turn invisible. And then it quickly becomes that she can turn other objects invisible and then generate incredibly strong force fields. You got the Thing, who became stronger. You had the Human Torch, who can start to generate much higher heat. And, Mr. Fantastic, maybe he could stretch further, but with him, Mr. Fantastic was always about his brains, not necessarily his stretching ability. these 3 issues really started to take FF to another level. And these 3 issues are probably the best known of the entire run. If you're going to read one single issue of Fantastic Four, it should be this one. Issue number 51. This Man, This Monster. This issue really encapsulates everything about what the Fantastic Four really are. I don't want to spoil any more of this issue. I really think everyone should read this. This is apparently Stanley's favorite comic book of all time, and there's a good reason why. I'm happy to own my own personal copy, and every once in a while, I'll pull it out and leaf through it. But definitely check this one out. It's also hard to believe that this single issue came out right after a fantastic 3-issue run with the Silver Surfer and Galactus story. Number 8. I didn't realize how many times Reed Richards tried to revert the Thing back to his human form. Like earlier on, I swear this happens like every 3 or 4 issues. And in a lot of the earlier issues, you actually have the Thing turn back to human form quite often. Now, it starts to become like a tired trope. And they finally did away with it with issue number 79. But I didn't realize how often they mentioned that in the stories. There is a great backup story of Fantastic Four in Marvel Fanfare number 2 that kind of goes into this story. And it's a wonderful, what I would call like a throwback Fantastic Four story that takes you kind of back to the Silver Age. And it just does a really good job of like this, how would you say, Reed Richards' obsession about helping Ben Grimm get back to his normal human self. Number 9. I had no idea how integral Crystal was with the Fantastic Four. Now, Crystal is an Inhuman, but she is, if you look at the other Inhumans, she is such a non-Inhuman Inhuman, if that makes any sense. And she's very powerful, but it's really not clear exactly what her powers are, except she has these kind of energy elemental bolts that come out of her hands and does stuff. So she's the Human Torch's girlfriend, and that causes some drama. But I always thought she was just kind of like a secondary character, but she fills in for a lot of the issues where Sue Richards or Sue Storm is kind of on leave from having their baby, Franklin. So yeah, it surprised me like how much of an integral part of the Fantastic Four she was in like the later issues of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's run. Okay, number 10. Like, honestly, I could do like probably a top 20 of interesting kind of tidbits or facts about the Fantastic Four. You know, there's like the Yancey Street Gang. There are all the wonderful characters that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created in this run, from Black Panther to, you know, the Inhumans to Annihilus. It's really endless. And then there's also little funny things about how they always mention that when the Fantastic Four get into a battle, it's always in an area where that's a neighborhood that the buildings are going to be condemned, or empty warehouses. And I don't know how many times they mention that, but quite a bit. There's also Jack Kirby's amazing integration of like photos into his artwork and in some of the kind of the mid issues, especially with the cosmic backgrounds and stuff. Like really amazing. As well as the 1920s kind of 1930s gangster elements that appear a lot in like the later issues of Fantastic Four. There's just so much here to look at and to examine, and I cannot highly enough recommend reading this run. There's just this nostalgia mystique about this issue, and a lot of people, like creators, artists, readers, will say that, you know, Fantastic Four, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's run influenced them greatly. Now, where can I find or read these issues? Thankfully, they come in a lot of formats. They've been reprinted many times. If you have a subscription to Marvel Unlimited, you could read them digitally on your tablet. I personally like reading them in physical form. I do have like a few hardcovers like these Marvel Masterworks, which I think are great because not only do they reprint all the issues, but they give you extras. Like an alternate cover of Fantastic Four number 52, as well as what the Black Panther thankfully didn't turn out to look like. But yeah, the first 102 issues of Fantastic Four, definitely worth a read and worth checking out. Thanks for watching. You can check out another one of my videos over here or here. Until next time, read and enjoy your comic books.